Yeah, I trained with Martin Ford.
Yeah.
When was it? 4 days ago. I'm still sore.
Yeah.
My pecs all the way in here.
Yeah.
All the way out here, still sore.
Yeah. Yeah, you're gonna be pretty.
But like a good sore, you know?
Yeah.
It's actually quite gratifying.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
The dumps.
Right?
Well, there's a different type of pain. Like you'll find out today. So it's like I have massive respect for powerlifters because the type of like it just like hurts your bones and like your soul, like to walk out with a lot of weight on your back. But like the hypertrophy pain is like it's an ongoing, longer duration. So it's like I find lots of times like some of the best powerlifters I've ever known, they fucking can't do hypertrophy training for the life of them because they're just not accustomed to that type of pain. So they're literally, I could just see like deer in the headlights. Like basically once we're 15 or 20 seconds into anything, they're like, oh fuck, this is gonna be bad. I'm like, yeah, it's gonna be bad. So we do front squats. Oh, excuse me, we do seated leg curls first. Then we've been doing front squats for kind of, that's the big thing we do more like for straight sets. We're in a mode, we're a little bit more like lower volume now. So basically it would literally just be like 2 working sets in a leg curl, normally just 1 or 2 at most in front squats. And then we've been supersetting lying leg curls with the hack, banded hack, and same thing, maybe 2 sets there. And then just depending on how one feels at that point in time, on something else. So it's not a ton of volume, but.
I have a feeling the sets are going to be a little different than we're used to, so.
Well, the first thing will be
Those are just the sets written on paper, you know.
Yeah.
There's other stuff in there. Really
Yeah, for sure.
I guess this is a kind of like a difficult question, but what do you think that you do differently than other people? Like, what's your thing, you know?
Yeah. So my thing's a little bit of, if I have something I have like better definitions or qualify things better than other people, I'm a bit of a stickler for like form, but form is just the way to obviously like make things harder. So it's both ends. So like one, I have an idea, and I think there's more than most people of like how to really make sure that your form's on point with the end goal of making things harder. And on the other end of it, having trained like a retard for so long, and then having trained with a bunch of people that honestly train harder than me. Like once I get that down, I know what hard training is, and I generally get more out of people than they would do on their own. So I'd like to say it's the combination of things, because even though I tend to find 90% of the population has such shit form, like that's where I might start first. And as a result of just that's the percentage of population, people are like, oh, he's a form guy. And I'm like, well, no, like sometimes I'll get somebody that's like 1 cue, they're good to go, and then I'll just run them into the ground.
When you say that, people sometimes leave.
So that's the funny thing is like I think it's I think a lot of people are saying the same thing, and then people would just get caught on the nuances.
Are you secretly going to crush her legs? Walk out of here after this?
Well, it's not a secret. I already told her. I mean, we're gonna try and hurt her. Well, the thing is, we just have to find something to make ourselves feel better about ourselves, because we're gonna squat. And I'm just hoping top sets, I'm a little above where she's at. Best case scenario, I can tell somebody I squatted like 5 more pounds than you today, and then I'm bragging about squatting more than like a 120-pound girl. On paper, that's not a whole lot to be proud about.
My nieces aren't gonna fit by the end of this. And the leggings. The leggings.
That's one of the best cues I learned is like any exercise for a good hypertrophy standpoint should have basically something in opposition of the load you're using to push into, because otherwise it's basically just wasted energy to have to manage something else. And so a lot of people aren't cued to actually use those things. Like it's the exact same thing. This from the top is the same thing as like the back of a leg press. Like imagine if you weren't smashed into if a leg press didn't have a back, how good of an exercise would it be? It'd be fucking useless. So it's the same thing on this. When you actually use it, one, it generally helps you feel the muscle more, but you'll actually be able to use more load then. Because if there's actually like this little break between like your thigh finding that pad and you actually curling, it's like a little gap of like your effort actually going to moving the thing.
Is that one heavier, or was I just already tired?
Heavier. No, yeah. We're just gonna slowly creep on that.
You made it look easy.
We're at 85. See, the good part about like more hypertrophy work too is you really feel like you earn all the shitty food you eat afterwards a little bit better. That's like kind of the gauge for us. Normally, like, did we earn enough to like be done now and like go eat something really bad?
Yeah, are we at sushi level?
We're doing this grill. Like, think about all those contractions I had. Fuck, I gotta eat. I'm depleted.
Have you found any difference between women and men?
In general, yeah, but it's hard for me to say for sure what I think the cause is. I'm not the first person to observe this, but most people found, which I'd agree, it seems like women can tolerate slightly higher volume.
From experience, I can tell you that one of the things that I've found that has changed a lot as I've developed into a more experienced athlete is that I've gotten worse at tolerating higher volumes because I think that I'm lifting just way bigger weights, so it's really hard for me, or it's harder for me to recover.
For sure, yeah. Well, it's all relative to load, right? And keeping everything the same, especially that end, just feel like hard contraction, because what I'll do hopefully different today for you guys is you be able to do everything the same, and I'll spot you to the same positions when you need it. Because you're always weaker in that short fatigue position, you'll fatigue towards the end first. And then so maybe the last ones have to push you just a little bit, and I might go 1 or 2 reps past failure. But I want you to think about all the same stuff. Like, know that I'm going to get you there, because most people's form goes to shit and they feel like they can't get there, and so they have to like try and fucking do something to get there. Right. But I'll get you there. You just try and keep everything the same. How hard? Finish all the way, all the way, all the way. Out slow, out slow, out slow. Guys.
When you were like, hey, you want to do something like girls as a warm up?
Yeah.
And then you're like, let's actually max this out so you can't do it.
I don't know if I ever used the word warm up. Did I?
I don't know, just
Maybe. I just said first.
feel or try.
He said 2 sets, and then he was like, 2 sets is just what's on paper.
Yeah. The first thing will be
Those are just the sets written on paper, you know.
Yeah.
There's other stuff in there, really.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that was a big thing. And then I had the kind of in between time, honestly, when I would start to like learn some stuff, and I would think I was getting smart, and then I was always like brushing on that edge of getting outside of my scope of practice, like trying to fix shit. And now I'm so much better at like I'll accidentally fix stuff, but I won't actually like promise people. Like people like, hey, like my knee hurts this and that. I'm like, okay, well let's look at it, let's look around it, let's move some stuff, let's find out what you can do pain-free. And then if we can do whatever we can do, then sometimes over time, we're like, hey, look, by moving this a lot, moving that a lot, training not where it was in any pain, like, oh, my knee's fixed. I'm like, well, that's nice. A lot of people, when you do stuff, it does fix, or they do alleviate pain. And like, oh, that's great. I'm like, oh, sweet, that happened. But then worst case scenario, like if it's something, you never know when something's underlying. Somebody has some underlying pathology that I really couldn't tell without a fucking MRI. That way, if I do something for several weeks, you know, and still whatever I can do pain-free appropriately, and shit doesn't go right, I'm like, well, go see your doctor. And I have that verbiage dialogue as well. I'm always like, well, here's what I would do. And that's like my safe claim for most people. Because again, if my knee hurts, I don't go to the doctor the next day. I'm like, if my knee hurts, I'm like, okay, well, where does it hurt? What can I do pain-free? What can I address around it? I kind of do that kind of stuff. And then whatever period of time someone's comfortable with and the level of pain will determine should I refer out or whatever it is. So just stuff like that too, where I kind of know like the end of my knowledge much better now, and I stay right within that.
That's an amazing take-home message, I think, and one that's important for upcoming personal trainers and coaches. And anyone really, even if you just stay within your scope, you know, say what you're trained to say and what you know.
Yeah, and you guys are at where you're at too. It's like your clients, you find out too, they don't want you to have all the answers. They want you to be able to direct them to all the answers. Absolutely. So it's like having a good referral network too, right? So like they don't fucking care. That's the thing is I was in that spot where I wanted to be like the jack of all trades, like trainer, like, oh, I'm a little good at everything. And then you just end up being bad at everything, you know? Like, oh, I know everything. Like, no, you don't. Like, it's just like, just be really good at one thing.
How you doing? You all right?
Yeah, good to meet you. Thank you so
Is
much
that
for
your
having
bag?
us.
Are you walking around with the Louis Vuitton chin bag?
Yeah.
Who are you?
I'm pretty good.
Okay, cool. Ask me if you can do that first, please.
my bad.
Yeah, cool.
8 or 9 reps in a 10. Does that mean that when most of your sets are done to failure?
Yeah, so that's the biggest thing that really I would say differs massively from person to person. So it's like, depending on population. So any like new lifter, there could be depending on the person, and because I've always worked with one-on-one people, like that's the area where I have to be the most careful when I'm like putting out content to people. Because the population that I train with, most people have like 10 plus years under their belt. So when I normally impose like, okay, here's the way we're gonna do form, here's the way we're gonna do the exercise, I normally just say, well, let's start with all that for one hard set, and then let's see where we go. So for more like my intermediate and advanced population, I tend to be more of like a lower volume advocate, because one set done the way that I like it to actual failure tends to be adequate stimulus for them to, get the outcome that I want. So yeah, it depends on the person, but for like more advanced people, I tend to do almost everything. I'd rather do, instead of like accumulating just, the total effective volume or the total load that you're using, I'd rather see what I can accumulate just from one set. And so that's my population. I tend to be, it's accurate to tend to say I'm a little bit more of a low volume advocate and just taking those sets a little bit further.
Yeah, because I think something that's important to consider in terms of that hypertrophy is that total volume is not the only
Yeah.
driver force or factor for
Yeah.
you grow bigger muscles. Like,
Yeah, that's one of those things too, where it's like that's the whole thing where I honestly like tend to feel like I'm speaking a different language to people because you get, and not that any of this is bad, but you get like I get a bunch of meatheads, and like their personal bias is they've just trained in the gym their whole life, so their personal bias is like, you know, fuck overthinking things, just get in and just work hard, just pick shit up, and I'm like, well, it has a time and place and works for a person to a degree. But then you get like the research people, and like their bias is like maybe from an academic background. They've never maybe really been around athletes, maybe they've never really trained hard themselves, and I'm like, well, you know, research would indicate that volume's a driver, blah, 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 blah. And like when I actually like, you look at the actual studies that are done, where it's like looking at things like time under tension, or looking at like the accumulation of volume, like it's so far from what I actually do with someone when I work with them like one-on-one in person. I'm like, I can't relate those two things. It's not a bad thing for people to obviously have some basic principles, so you're just not like off the fucking wall, like here's what I went in a cave and done it by myself. But then people get a little too attached to stuff where it's like you just work with enough bodies in front of you, and it's like, all right, I've got that idea and I've got that theme, but like let's just see what happens when we do this and take it from there. So
but that doesn't mean that you ignore the literature or the research.
Yeah.
You understand that it's there, you've read it, you've seen it, but then you take the things that aligns with the practice.
Oh, for sure.
And I think that's what makes you a great coach.
Oh, thanks.
It's a difference.
and there's like, well, there's
You don't
big-
ignore the research just because it doesn't agree with what you're doing. You try it out, then you see what are some of the things that work with the particular population that you work with, and there's things that don't work, you leave them alone.
Yeah.
Things that work, you keep doing.
Well, you find like honestly, like most of like this, like the smart people, like a lot of PhDs and stuff that like a lot of people are saying the same thing. I mean, it really comes to things that like load seems to be the main driver, you know. So I think I like that with what I'm doing. Like again, the amount of load someone relative might use with my given form might be slightly different, but like load seems to be the main driver.
Yeah, that's hypertrophy.
I'm a hybrid. I had a little bit of that and everything.
Yeah, you can barely come up to it. Does he like Metallica too? Did we just become best friends?
So do you remember when this girl, she took you, she was able to launch you from there? Remember, she swung you around because she had underhooks. And you attacked her. You attacked her right. You attacked that leg here, but you attacked her here, so you had no leverage. But if you had the underhook here, you had the leverage. Do you know what I mean? You know, and you must have locked up with Sarah. Yeah. So sorry. But I think basically what they're gonna do is to lock up with me. Yeah. You're a fucking athlete, man. Well, because they usually like bodybuilders, they lock like this. And they don't move and they're real, you know, rigid. But I think that's basically that's what they're gonna look for. So release. Just dig. So basically what you're gonna do. That's it. Just dig in. Yeah. So just digging in. Yeah. And this is why when people have double underhooks, then they completely control your balance. Make sense?
That's a stronger position, obviously.
Yes, it's a dominant position. Because when you have double underhooks in somebody, you completely control the balance. Oh, sorry. Oh, you know what else is, and this is like getting way ahead of ourselves, but so there's something you can work on until you go to your trial. So Shawn Michaels, you know what Shawn Michaels is? Shawn Michaels, he's one of the best wrestlers that's ever lived. Research Shawn Michaels. You should research with you guys. And if you guys, you should know before you go. Shawn Michaels. So he told me that at somewhere in the match when it breaks down, it's going to be two people slugging it out. So when you go home, like just find a wall and work on your punch. Yeah, and it's big and exaggerated. And like the punch is all kind of body language. That's why the Rock's is so over exaggerated. Like, you know what I'm talking about. But so it is. It's I mean, don't yeah. It's gonna feel a little silly, but it's the hardest thing for people that are muscular to do well. So you should start really, because it's something that you really have to be loose with. Like throwing a baseball.
That's what I'm the worst at.
Throwing a baseball.
Yeah.
So you have time to work on it. Yeah. Oh, you're a football player. Do you say soccer? Anyway, if you have access to that, just start throwing this. Like, start. Run the rolls away. But it's really just to protect yourself. It's to kind of cushion your fall. Because a lot of people, when they fall and they want to protect themselves like that. And that's like the worst thing you can do. You see a lot of guys when they're doing jiu-jitsu when they roll, it's like, you know.
I just feel like I need drills to loosen up in general.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I'm too stiff, you know?
I think, yeah, because no matter what you do, how loose you are, no matter how you stand, you're going to be the most muscular girl in the ring. I probably didn't answer any of your questions.
No, that was a lot of your information.
There's too much information at once.
No,